are going to start out a new lesson. And they worship the sun toward the east. And they worship the sun toward the east. We want to start out in Ezekiel, in the Old Testament, Ezekiel, the 8th chapter. And this is an update to our lesson on Garden of Eden time. If you go to our website, you'll see that we have a couple of lessons that explains why we do not observe Yahweh's Shabbat or any of his days from sundown to sundown or sunset to sunset. And so this is an update to that lesson, and Yahweh has given us a little different way to approach it. Ezekiel, the 8th chapter. So Yahweh created multiple lights, and one of them was the sun. Sundown and sunset are hybrid man-made words that are not in the Bible, so they cannot be taken back to search them out in the original languages that the Bible was written in. Merriam-Webster, who has written a dictionary, defines sundown as sunset, the time when the sun goes below the horizon. And its first known use was in 1620 AD. So before then, that word did not exist. It's kind of like the letter J, which was not in the original English language, which is why we don't use the word Jesus for the sun. So the word sundown was first known in use in 1620 AD in English language. Now we have some temples, when they go to pray, they say, stand and face the east. So we want to look at this in Ezekiel, the 8th chapter, where Yahweh said there's a problem about us just standing and facing the east to do anything. And what Yahweh is going to show us in this series is that there are a lot of people, cultures, that worship the sun, the moon, the stars, and Yahweh is showing us in this updated version of Garden of Eden time that watching the sun go down to determine when a day begins or ends is part of this sun worship and worshiping what Yahweh calls the host of heaven. Let's go to, we're in Ezekiel the 8th chapter. We want to read verse 15, please. Ezekiel 8 and verse 15 reads,
Then said he unto me, Hast thou seen this, O son of man? Turn thee yet again, and thou shalt see greater abominations than these.
So here in Ezekiel, the 8th chapter, Yahweh was showing Yehezkel or Ezekiel some things that our forefathers, the children of Israel, were doing, which were abominations, which were things that Yahweh said not to do, which were things that the heathen nations around them did. And so he's saying, now this thing that I'm going to show you, he showed him some things that were detestable to him, that were sinful to him, that he said not to do. Now he's saying to Yehezkel, I'm going to show you something even worse than that. He said, Then amar he unto me, Hast thou seen this, O Ban of Adam? Turn thee yet again, and thou shalt see greater abominations than these. So this is worse than the other abominations. You read it at your own time in Ezekiel, the 8th chapter, that the children of Israel had started doing, copying after the heathen. Verse 16.
And he brought me into the inner court of Yahweh's house, and behold, at the door of the temple of Yahweh, between the porch and the altar, were about 25 men, with their backs toward the temple of Yahweh, and their faces toward the east. And they worshiped the sun toward the east.
So he's talking about the children of Israel, our forefathers. He's not talking about Gentiles. He's not talking about somebody that is not his people. He's talking about his people. He said, he brought me into the inner court of Yahweh's Bayit, his temple. And behold, at the door of the temple of Yahweh, between the porch and the altar, were about 25 Adam, with their backs toward the temple of Yahweh, and their faces toward the east. What were they doing? They were worshiping the sun. And it says, and they shaka the sun toward the east. So this is an abomination. We're going to go to 1 Kings, the 8th chapter. Yahweh didn't say stand and say face the east to pray. Because, and he put this in here, where our forefathers, these 25 men were standing and facing the east, but they had their back to the temple. What we're going to see is that Yahweh told us to turn towards the temple, not have your back to the temple facing the east. And Yahweh said the reason they were facing the east is because they were worshiping the sun. So we're going to go to 1 Kings, the 8th chapter, but I'm going to read this while we're turning. And it says, sun worship, religion written by the editors of Encyclopedia Britannica. Sun worship or veneration of the sun or a representation of the sun as a deity, as in Atonism in Egypt in the 4th century BC. It says, although sun worship has been frequently used as a term for pagan religions, they're saying it's relatively rare, but it's really not. And you'll see from the research that Yahweh had me do, it's a whole lot of cultures that worship the sun. Encyclopedia Britannica continues. So almost every culture uses solar motifs. Well, solar, he's talking about the sun. Only a relatively few cultures, like Egyptian, Indo-European, and Mesoamerican, developed solar religions. All of these groups had in common a well-developed urban civilization with a strong ideology of sacred kingship. In all of them, the imagery of the sun as the ruler of both the upper and the lower worlds that he majestically visits on his daily round is prominent. So this is the thing that Yahweh's going to show us, where they've actually personified the sun and personified the moon and made it into a person instead of the natural things of nature that Yahweh created. All right, Encyclopedia Britannica goes on about sun worship. The sun is the bestower of light and life to the totality of the cosmos. With his, see how I was talking about the sun as a person, unblinking, all-seeing eye, he is the stern guarantor of justice with the almost universal connection of light with enlightenment or illumination. The sun is a source of wisdom. No, it's not. Yahweh is a source of wisdom. So you see how even in Encyclopedia Britannica, they're talking about this natural phenomenon like it's a person. All right, it says, kings rule by the power of the sun and claim descent from the sun. These are pagan kings. Solar deities, gods personifying the sun, are sovereign and all-seeing. The sun is often a prime attribute of, or is identified with, the supreme deity. And Yahweh's going to show us some scripture to where people have confused the sun, the moon, and the stars, and they think it's Yahweh and Yahshua. All right, because they made it into deities. It says in Egypt, ancient Egypt, the sun god Ra was a dominant figure among the high gods and retained his position from early in that civilization's history. All right, the sun god occupied a central position in both Sumerian and Akkadian religion, but neither the Sumer Hutu or the Semitic Shamash, now Shemites, that's talking about our people. So they had a sun god called Shamash, was included among the 3 highest gods of the pantheon. The sun was one of the most popular deities, however, among the Indo-European peoples, and was a symbol of divine power to them. All right, nearly all the gods of the period were possessed of solar qualities, and both Christ and Mithra acquired the traits of these solar deities. The feast of Sol Invictus, or unconquered sun, on December 25th was celebrated with great joy, and eventually this date was taken over by the Christians, Roman Christians, as Christmas, the birthday of Christ. All right, so let's go to 1 Kings, the 8th chapter. So Yahweh said this was an abomination he was showing Ezekiel, with them standing to face the sun and worshiping the sun, to face the east and worshiping the sun. So Yahweh said to turn and face towards a spot where the temple that King Shelomah built in Jerusalem used to be, is the spot to pray. So he's saying face towards Jerusalem and have that temple on your mind. He didn't say anything about facing the east, because depending on where you live, Jerusalem is not east. So when you're saying stand and face the east, you're dealing with sun worship. You've been influenced by sun worship. All right, 1 Kings 8, and let's read verse 38, please. 1 Kings 8, and let's read verse 38, please.
What prayer and supplication soever be made by any man or by all thy people is Israel, which shall know every man the plague of his own heart, and spread forth his hand toward this house.
Now this is King Shelomah, and he had just built this temple to Yahweh. His father, King Dawid, actually provided all the materials. But Yahweh said, Dawid, you're not going to build this house for me. You have too much blood on your hands. You fought a lot of wars and everything. But his father gathered all the timber and everything he needed to build this house. So now he finished building the house, King Shelomah, and now he's dedicating it. And the children of Israel are gathered there. And he's praying to Yahweh, and he's saying, okay, what tefillah or palal and supplication soever be made by any Adam, or by all thy am Yisrael, that's us, which shall yada every Adam the plague of his own Layil, or mine, or pay, and spread forth his hands toward this temple, this bayit. All right, and that was in Jerusalem. All right, verse 39.
Then hear thou in heaven thy dwelling place, and forgive and do, and give to every man according to his ways, whose heart thou knowest, for thou, even thou only, knowest the hearts of all the children of men.
So he's saying, then shamar thou in Shemayim thy dwelling place, and forgive and do. Hear that prayer that's prayed towards that temple. The temple is not there anymore, but you let the temple come into your mind. You're standing and facing towards Jerusalem, that spot where Yahweh said his eyes and ears would be there perpetually. If you want to see where Yahweh answered this prayer, go to 1 Kings, the 9th chapter, and he'll let you know, King Shlomo, I heard your prayer and I answered it, and my eyes will always be towards that spot for those of us that stand and face toward the holy place where Yahweh said his eyes and ears would be there perpetually. So we say we'll stand and face towards Jerusalem, the holy place where Yahweh said his eyes and ears would be there perpetually. And if we bethink ourselves and turn towards that place in sincerity and in truth, we don't say stand and face the east, because Yahweh didn't say that he would hear prayers if you stand and face the east. All right, and we want Yahweh to hear our prayers. He said, then shamar thou in Shemayim thy dwelling place, and forgive and do and give to every Adam according to his ways, whose pay thou yada. For thou, even thou only, yada, ha-pay of all ha-ban of Adam. Let's go to Deuteronomy 17th chapter. So turning to face the east to pray is worshiping the sun. Whether we know it or not, Yahweh wants us to know it. And it's an abomination to him. Deuteronomy 17. Yahweh's going to show us throughout this series that we have been influenced by these sun worshipers. Deuteronomy 17, we're going to only read one verse, verse 3. Deuteronomy 17, and let's read verse 3, please.
And hath gone and served other Elohims, and worshipped them, either the sun, or moon, or any of the host of heaven, which I have not commanded.
He always tells us what he did command us and what he didn't. He said, I didn't command you to go and serve other Els or mighty ones and shaka them, either the sun, because we just read this where they made the sun a God, the moon, or any of the host of Shemayim, which I have not SABBATH. So just about everything Yahweh created, you have people out here worshiping them. There's their temple over there in different countries, and the people are starving, but because they worship the cow, They won't eat the cow. They think the cow is a G-O-D. They think the cow is Yahweh. Then you got a temple over there that's full of rats. They think rats are G-O-D. Then you got a temple full of snakes. Then you got some that think the monkeys. I mean, it just, he's saying all the host of Shemayim, he said, which I have not commanded. He's just dealing with this one thing right now, but we're going to see where people worship trees too. That's part of what December 25th is about. And they don't know it. All right, let's go to 2 Kings, the 23rd chapter. 2 Kings, 23rd chapter. He said, you gone with other elves and shaka them. He said, the sun, the moon, and the host of Shemayim. He said, well, I have not commanded you to do that. He said, worship me, don't worship what I created. 2 Kings 23. But in this pagan world, we got co-opted. 2 Kings 23, we're going to read one verse, verse 5. 2 Kings 23 and verse 5 reads,
And he put down the idolatrous priests, whom the kings of Yehuda had ordained to burn incense in the high places in the cities of Yehuda, and in the places around about Jerusalem. Them also that burn incense unto Baal, to the sun, and to the moon, and to the planets, and to all the host of heaven.
So he's talking to Israel. He's talking to our forefather. He said he put down the idolatrous Kahena, whom Hamelech of Yehuda. Who? Yehuda. That's Israel. That's the priestly tribe. And they're the ones burning incense. You're supposed to be burning incense to Yahweh. They're burning incense to, he said, the kings of Yehuda had ordained to burn incense in the high places in the cities of Yehuda, in Israel, in the places round about Jerusalem. Them also they burn incense unto Baal, to the sun, the moon, to the planets, and to all the host of Shemayim. So this was a big thing. And again, it got into the nation of Israel. And some of it's still hanging around. I go to Jeremiah, or Yirmiah, the 8th chapter. And Yahweh wants to expose it and bring it out, so we can see it for what it is. Jeremiah, the 8th chapter. We're going to read one verse, verse 2. Jeremiah, the 8th chapter. And let's read verse 2, please.
And they shall spread them before the sun, and the moon, and all the hosts of heaven, whom they have loved, and whom they have served, and after whom they have walked, and whom they have sought, and whom they have worshipped. They shall not be gathered, nor be buried. They shall be for dung upon the face of the earth.
All right, so that D-U-N-G is a nice word for saying the S word, all right?
Right.
He said, and they shall spread them before the sun and the moon and all the hosts of Shemayim, whom they have and whom they have Eved. So they were worshiping sun, moon, stars, and whatever, the planets, whatever is up in the sky. And again, whatever's on the earth, they worship that too. But we're just dealing with this worshiping the sun and the things that are in the sky. He said, after whom they have walked, and whom they have sought, and whom they have shakah. That's worship, served, and bow down. Yahweh and Yahshua are the only ones you're supposed to worship, serve, and bow down. It says, they shall not be gathered, nor be buried, but they shall be dung upon the face of Ha'eret. Let's go back to Ezekiel, 32nd chapter. So the English word sun is the Hebrew word shemesh. Shemesh. That's S-H-E-M-E-S-H. It's found at Strong's number 8121. It means to be brilliant, the sun, the east, a ray, a notched battlement, means east side, side word, sun rising, also means westward or window. Dictionary.com, and And this is another dictionary like Merriam-Webster. Again, sundown and sunset are not in the Bible. So you can't go back to the Hebrew or the Aramaic to search them out. They didn't even exist until the 1600s. Dictionary.com says sundown is number 1, sunset, especially the time of sunset. Number 2, it's a psychiatry word, means to experience confusion or hallucinations at night as a result of strange surroundings, drug effects, decreased sensory input, or reduction of oxygen supply to the brain. Its first recorded use is 1610 to 1620 AD, and it combined the two words sun plus down. All right, we're in Ezekiel 32. We're going to read one verse. Ezekiel 32, I want to read verse 8. Ezekiel 32 and verse 8, please.
All the bright lights of heaven will I make dark over thee, and set darkness upon thy land, saith Yahweh Elohim.
Now why is he going to do that? He's going to do it. The bright lights he's talking about are the lights that he created, sun, moon, stars. But he says, all the bright ore of Shemayim will I make dark over thee, and set darkness upon thy land, Amar Yahweh Elohim. Why? Because people are worshiping these things. And people personified the natural created sun and started to worship it. And ancient Israel also became heavily involved in it. Let's go to the New Testament, to Romans, the 1st chapter. So they were worshiping right along with the pagans. And Yahweh kept telling them, don't learn the ways of the heathen. Don't do that. Romans, the 1st chapter. Just like we read that in Encyclopedia Britannica, and he's talking about the sun like it's a hymn. But it's a natural phenomenon. There's no personality to the sun. Romans 1, I'm going to read one verse, verse 25. Romans 1 and verse 25 reads,
Who changed the truth of Elohim into a lie, and worshipped and served the creature more than the Creator, who is blessed forever. Amen.
All right, who is this? People not listening to Yahweh. They changed Ha'imeth of Elohim into a lie. And Shaka and Ebed, the creature, more than Habarah, the Creator, who is Barak forever. Amen. So Yahweh is blessed forever. The things he made, he said, heaven and earth is going to pass away. Yahweh's not going to pass away. And we're not going to pass away as long as we stay attached to him. So this English word creature in this verse in Romans is the Greek word kitsit. Kitsis. That's K-T-S-I-S. It's found as Strong's number 2937. And it means the act of founding, establishing, building, the act of creating. So he's talking about the things that Yahweh made. The creation, things created, of individual things, beings, a creature, a creation, anything created, the sum or aggregate of things created, institution, ordinance. So he's saying they serve the creature more than the Creator. So whatever Yahweh made, they turned their back on him and started worshiping the things he made. All right, let's go to Genesis, the 1st chapter. And that's what man does. He's backwards apart from Yahweh. But we're born into the world backwards. Why? Because we're born with that sin nature, separated from Yahweh. But we get hooked back up with him. Once he calls us and we respond to the call. And we got to recognize what we've been hooked up with. And we were hooked up with this sun worship, moon worship, planet, star worship. All right, Genesis, the 1st chapter. And we're going to start at verse 14. Now we're going to look at these lights that Yahweh made. And the sun is one of those lights. And what did he make them for? What's their purpose? All right, Genesis 1 and verse 14.
And Elohim said, Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, And let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years.
Now he's saying right here what the lights he created are for. They have a natural purpose. They don't have a spiritual purpose. It says in Elohim Amar, let there be ore in the firmament of Shemayim to divide Yowm from Layil. And let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years. Okay, verse 15.
And let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven, to give light upon the earth. And it was so.
All right, it'd be real dark if he hadn't put these lights down here. And really, it would be pitch black. Just like even if you go into the country where they don't have lights, then it's pretty dark. So just imagine without the moon at night, without the sun during the day, you really couldn't see in front of your face. He said, let them be for ore in the firmament of Shemayim, and to give ore unto Ha'er, because we need it. And it was so. This is what these lights he made are for. They are not for us to make Elohims out of them and worship them. All right, verse 16.
And Elohim made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also.
All right, so Yahweh is telling us a little bit about these. There's two lights that are brighter or greater than the others. That doesn't mean they should be worshipped. They just mean Yahweh has a different purpose for them. He made two great or lights, the greater or to rule Yowm. We're going to find out that's the sun. All right, and the lesser or to rule Layil, the night. We're going to find out that's the moon. It says he made the stars also, because we need a whole lot of light. All right, 17.
Excuse me. And Elohim set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth.
All right, there's their purpose right there. He set them in the middle of the firmament to give light upon the earth. We're going to go to 1 Kings, the 18th chapter. So now when we first came into the truth, our temple taught us to look at the sun going down to determine when days began and ended. Yes, they did. They taught us that Yahweh used the sun, and that we should look at the sun going down to know when a day began and ended. 1 Kings 18. For the weekly Shabbat ending, what we would say was we wait about 5 minutes after the sun goes down to be sure the Shabbat was ended. And that's what some people still do. I'm not knocking them because we did it for years. But now at the same time, the Romans say that a new day begins at 12:01 a.m. Then we would argue with them saying that the word itself, midnight, means in the middle of the night. So how can they say the day starts at 12:01 a.m. right after midnight? Because when something's in the middle, it means you have the same before as behind, right? So we weren't understanding how they could say that, because mid means there's supposed to be the same amount of whatever before and after, because that's in the middle. All right? 1 Kings 18, and let's read one verse, verse 29.
And it came to pass, when midday was past, and they prophesied until the time of the offering of the evening sacrifice, that there was neither voice nor any to answer, nor any that regarded.
All right, so we would kind of, argue with the Romans about saying, hey, midnight means a new day can't start at 12:01 a.m. Now, the same principle applies to midday, which is 12 o'clock noon. So if it's the middle of the day or midday, then that means the same amount of time has to be before it and the same amount of time after it. All right, let's go to the New Testament, to John, the 4th chapter. So Yahweh wants us to see how this Old English, puts the hours in here. because sometimes people think that we've gotten so modern that they can't understand. Like people say, well, I need to get me a Bible, this and this and this. I can't understand that old English. Well, if you can't understand the old English, you can't understand the new English. But so Yahweh wants us to understand how he put these times in here, because just because you don't see 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, he's still letting you know how he set up time. And he's still letting us know, which eventually we saw it, that we were involved in a little bit of this sun worship. Our temple told us, watch the sun go down. This is how you determine when a day has started. Okay? Now Yahweh is letting us know that's part of that sun worship that's out there. Okay? John the 4th chapter, we're going to read verse 6. John the 4th chapter and verse 6. So we're going to see how Yahweh talks about midday, which is 12 o'clock noon, and see what they call it. John 4 and verse 6. Read.
Now Jacob's well was there. Yahshua therefore, being wearied with his journey, sat thus on the well, and it was about the 6th hour. Now this is Yahweh telling you about how he set up time. And remember, it's midday. We just read in 1 Kings, midday. So he's saying the 6th hour. That's the middle of the day. Because Yahweh's going to show us, Yahshua said that there's 12 hours in the day part. Talking about the light part of the day. And there's 12 hours in the night part of the day. That makes up a 24-hour day. It says, now Jacob's well was there. Yahshua therefore being his journey sat thus on the well, and it was about the 6th hour. That's high noon. That's 12 o'clock noon. He's saying the 6th hour, so that means there were 6 hours before noon and 6 hours after noon. Why? Because it's in the middle of the day. The night is the same way. Midnight, you have 6 hours before of night, and you have 6 hours after of night. And where we got mixed up and confused was looking at the sun. And so Yahweh's going to show us we should have never been looking at the sun. He didn't even make the sun until the 4th day. And he had created 3 days already. So this is just letting you know, okay, midday, you got as much before as behind. So he said it's the 6th hour. And the reason he said it, so we can keep in mind, okay, Yahweh's got this thing organized. All right, let's go to John the 19th chapter. 19th chapter. So he said Yahshua was there, and it was about the 6th hour. That means the morning started at 6 a.m. Noon is in the middle of the day. And then 6 hours after, Yahweh's going to show us that the day ended. That was the light part of the day. And again, Yahweh's going to show us that he starts his days in the evening. We were told he started them at sundown. But Yahweh showed us, and we did that for years. But he showed us, you know what, I didn't say that. And he's a real stickler about what he says. And he wants us to say and do exactly what he says. John 19, let's read verse 14, please. John 19 and verse 14. And it was the preparation of the Passover, and about the 6th hour, and he said unto the Jews, behold your king.
All right, it was a preparation of our Pesach, and about the 6th hour. Now Yahweh's going into when Yahshua was crucified. And he breaks it down for us, and we'll see it during this lesson. And he coordinated exactly with the sacrifices, with the sacrificial system that Yahweh set up in the Old Testament. So we understand that Yahshua was on the cross at noon. But we're also going to find out they put him on the cross at 9 a.m. But we want to see here, Yahweh's talking about the 6th hour. That's midday, in the light part of the day. That means that it's right in the middle, so there was 6 hours when the day started. That makes 6 a.m. There's 6 hours when the day ends. Why? Because in mid, remember that mid. And people want to throw it out, but we have to remember what Yahweh's saying. He didn't say the 6th hour for nothing. It was about the 6th hour, which is high noon, and he amar unto Hayadim, behold your melech. Let's go to Acts the 10th chapter. Yahweh is very organized.
Yes, he is.
He does all things decently and in order.
Praise Yahweh.
Acts 10, we want to read one verse, verse 9. Acts 10 and verse 9, please.
On the morrow, as they went on their journey and drew nigh unto the city, Kepha went up upon the housetop to pray about the 6th hour.
All right, so here, Yahweh is just reiterating, so we understand now the 6th hour is midday. And we haven't seen scripture yet where Yahshua said that there's 12 hours in the light part of the day. But we will. If we don't get to it today, we will get to it tomorrow. It says, on the morrow as they went on their journey and drew nigh into the city, Kepha went up unto the housetop to Palal about the 6th hour. That's noon, midday. The 6th hour. Let's go to Matthew's the 27th chapter. We're going to look at Yahshua's crucifixion a little bit again. Matthew's 27. I'm going to read one verse. Verse 45. Matthew's 27. Now Yahweh brings in another hour. Matthew's 27 and verse 45, please.
And now from the 6th hour there was darkness over all the land unto the 9th hour.
Now the 6th hour, again, is right there in the middle of the day. That's high noon. Then he said there was darkness all over the land until the 9th hour. That's 3 hours later. That's 3 o'clock. And Yahweh's going to keep doing this. 6, 9, 12, 3, 6. 6, 9, 12, 3, 6. So he is letting us know that Yahshua was on the cross at noon. And we're going to see they put him on there earlier, actually at 9 o'clock in the morning. But the darkness, because he's getting ready to transition, was over the land until the 9th hour, till 3 in the afternoon, where Yahweh's going to show us that he had a 3 o'clock sacrifice that he had our forefathers do every day. Why? He was pointing to Yahshua. And Yahshua died on the cross exactly, precisely at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. That's why Yahweh said there was darkness from noon until 3. Again, we're just looking at this old English, and we want to understand, because you don't see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 o'clock. But we're intelligent people. We can see where Yahweh's taking us and how he's explaining it to us. So it was dark from high noon until 3 p.m. when Yahweh had already set up the ordinance that the sacrifice, the lamb, was to be killed by our forefathers, our priests, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. This is something they had done for years. This is how Yahweh set it up. Why? Because he wanted it to point to Yahshua. And when Yahshua came as the perfect sacrifice, he died exactly at 3 o'clock, just like Yahweh set it up. Okay? So now, still at the same time now, we want to go to Malachi in the Old Testament, the 4th chapter. At the same time when we said days began and ended at sundown, we could not get 6 hours before and after midnight or midday. When we were looking at the sun and counting the hours, which we eventually, Yahweh had us start doing, we couldn't get that 6 hours before and after midday. The times of the day range from 4:15 p.m. when a day ended, like now, during the winter, the day gets dark at 4:15.
Yes. Praise Yahweh.
Well, during the summer, then the day might not get dark till 9 o'clock at night.
Wow.
But when you talk about midnight, so if it gets dark at 4:15, I got almost 8 hours till midnight. How's that in the middle of the night? It's not. Something, and Yahweh started letting us know something's wrong. The same thing if it doesn't end till 9 o'clock at night during the summer. What, I got 3 hours and that's supposed to be midnight. It's not. So somebody's off and it's not Yahweh. It was us.
Praise Yahweh.
All right? So now, we're looking at the Hebrew word son. The same Hebrew word for son is capitalized in Malachi. Malachi, the 4th chapter. So they capitalized this son over here in Malachi 4. And let's read verse 2. Malachi 4 and verse 2.
But unto you that fear my name shall the Son of Righteousness arise with healing in his wings, and he shall go forth and grow up as calves of the stall.
So it says, but unto you that respect, reverence my Shem, this is Yahweh talking, shall the son of Sadakah, and you see that's a capital son, and it's the same word, Shemesh, that's used for the natural son. Except now this one got capitalized. Now as far as the translator and how he knew to capitalize it, we don't know. But when we do a search off of this scripture, then Yahweh's going to show us, okay, this is referring to a person. This is actually referring to a person. It is not talking about that sun that's up in the sky that Yahweh put up there to give us light. It's not talking about that natural sun. It says, but unto you that reverence my Shem shall the son of Sadakah arise with Shalom in his wings, and ye shall go forth and go up as calves of the stalls. Now some people have said that this should have been S-O-N. But again, it's the same Hebrew word, Shemesh. So it's supposed to be S-U-N. But this is not talking about the sun up in the sky. This is talking about a literal person. All right, let's go to Isaiah 60. Isaiah 60. So misappropriation of this scripture in Malachi and other places may have to do with people worshiping the sun itself, the created sun. But the Son of Righteousness is an actual person. Not the ball in the sky. An actual person. Isaiah 60. And we want to start at verse 19. Isaiah 60 and verse 19, please.
The sun shall be no more thy light by day, neither for the brightness shall the moon give light unto thee. But Yahweh shall be unto thee an everlasting light, and thy Elohim thy glory.
Now this is a reference from that Son of Righteousness. It says, the sun, talking about the created, the natural ball in the sky, shall no more be thy or by Yowm, neither for brightness shall the moon give or unto thee. But Yahweh shall be unto thee an everlasting or an everlasting light. So somehow Yahweh and Yahshua are lights, but they're not the lights that Yahshua created and put in the sky. It says, and Elohim thy kabod, Lord, your glory. Verse 20.
Thy sun shall no more go down, neither shall thy moon withdraw itself. For Yahweh shall be thy everlasting light, and the days of thy mourning shall be ended.
So it says the sun shall no more go down, neither shall the moon withdraw itself. You won't need those natural lights. For Yahweh shall be your everlasting or, and Hayam of your mourning shall be ended. While we're waiting to pass through this earth light. He said you won't need the sun and the moon, because Yahweh's going to be your everlasting light. But people got this confused And they started making the sun a person and the moon a person. But they're talking about the man and the moon, right? Let's go to Revelation, the 21st chapter. So Yahweh and Yahshua are lights, but they are not those natural lights that were made to illuminate the earth. Revelation 21. This is a reference from the verse that we just read, Malachi 4 and 2. Revelation 21, I'm going to read one verse, verse 23. Revelation 21 and verse 23 reads,
And the city had no need of the sun, neither of the moon to shine in it. For the glory of Elohim did lighten it, and the Lamb is the light thereof.
all right, so there we are. We got those two lights. It said the city, is this talking about New Jerusalem? This is talking about the city that Yahshua went away to make for us. This is talking about the kingdom that's going to come and be on this earth when the new heaven and new earth are made. It says, the city had no need of the sun, neither of the moon to shine in it. Why? For Hakabod of Elohim did lighten it, and the Lamb is or the light thereof. So they're natural lights, because of the goodness and the glory that comes out of them. They just light up everywhere. They're lighting up Shemayim now. So they don't need the sun and the moon, but we do here in this dark place that we're in. But Yahweh is saying, so we got to understand, Yahweh and Yahshua are lights, but they're not the ball that's hanging up in the sky. They're not the planets. They're not. They're distinct people. All right. We're in Revelation. Let's go to the 22nd chapter. And let's read verse 5. Revelation 22 and verse 5, please.
And there shall be no light heat there, and they need no candle, neither light of the sun. For Yahweh Elohim giveth them light, and they shall reign forever and ever.
All right, so Yahweh had to create the sun and the moon for the earth, but they don't need light. They are light. It said there shall be no Layil there, and they need no candle, neither or of the sun. For Yahweh Elohim giveth them or light, and they shall reign forever and ever. Now I have another article on sun worship, and this is from the International Standard Bible Encyclopedia, written by James Orr. It says, the splendor of the sun makes it a natural object of adoration. Once the pure idea of the one true God is parted with, and in most ancient nations, the worship of the sun was an outstanding feature. Yes, it was. Let's go to Romans, the 1st chapter. So we read in Britannica where they acted like, well, there weren't many people that made sun worship a religion. Yes, there were. International Standard Bible Encyclopedia says most ancient nations, the worship of the sun was an outstanding feature. Romans, the 1st chapter. Men are always looking around to try to find something they can see to make it a deity, rather than to worship the one that they can't see. They like things that they can see. Romans 1, and that they can control. And let's start at verse 21, please.
Because that when they knew Elohim, they glorified him not as Elohim, neither were thankful, but became vain in their imaginations, and their foolish heart was darkened.
Okay, did you read 1:20? Romans 1 and 20. I'm sorry, did I say 21? I want you to read 20, please.
Oh.
Yeah.
For the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Elohimhead, so that they are without excuse.
So you're always saying, all you have to do is just look around and see what was made. And it's mind-boggling how people can look around and see the things that are made, see how complex they are, and still come up with a crazy idea about how all of this stuff came. It's just mind-boggling. He said, for the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Elohim has, so that they are without excuse. 21.
Because that when they knew Elohim, they glorified him not as Elohim, neither were thankful, but became vain in their imaginations, and their foolish heart was darkened.
All right, so they didn't glorify him and say, oh, thank you, Father, you made the sun to shine and give warmth. Thank you, you made the moon to give light. They started worshiping the sun and the moon, trees, and all kind of other stuff. It says, because of when they Yada Elohim, they knew it. Said they kabod him not as Elohim, neither were Torah, but became vain in their imagination, and their foolish mind, their foolish pay was darkened. So International Standard Encyclopedia, Bible Encyclopedia continues. It's found in Babylonian, talking about sun worship, and Assyrian, Samas, special seats of sun worship were Sappara and Larsa. In Egypt, it is a leading feature of the religion. Ra and other special phases. Horus, Tum, Aten. A special seat of sun worship was Heliopolis. The Old Testament An called in Beth Shemesh. Beth Shemesh. Remember, Shemesh means sun in Hebrew. So they have Beth Shemesh, which means house of the sun. Let's go to Jeremiah 43. Jeremiah 43. House of the sun, Beth Shemesh. Or Bayit Shemesh. Jeremiah 43, I'm going to read verse 13. Jeremiah 43 and verse 13. And we're going to see what Yahweh is telling them to do with these sun worshiping people.
Come on now.
Jeremiah 43 and 13.
He shall break also the images of Beth Shemesh, that is, in the land of Mizraim, and the houses of the Elohims of the Mizraims shall be burned with fire.
All right, so Yahweh is saying to tear them up. He shall break also the images of Beth Shemesh, house of the sun, that is in the land of Mizraim. So this is an Egyptian thing, just like makeup and different things. There's a whole lot of Egyptian things that have permeated into Greco-Romanism, and that people are still doing. And the Egyptians, they love cats. So they like to do their eyes, you know, so they kind of look like the cat. And then you see some people today, they'll do that. So that's where they got it from. Because the Egyptians love cats and they worship cats. It says, he shall break also the images of Beth Shemesh that's in the land of Mizraim, and Habayat of Ha'els of the Egyptians shall he burn with fire. Let's go to Joshua 15 chapter, Joshua 15. So other cities bore the name of Beth Shemesh. So it wasn't just the Egyptians. So you see when Encyclopedia Britannica said it wasn't widespread, yes it was. Joshua 15. And our fathers got infected with that stuff. Focusing on the sun. Joshua 15, I'm going to read one verse, verse 10. Joshua 15, verse 10, please.
And the border compassed from Baalah westward unto Mount Seir, and passed along unto the side of Mount Gaarim, which is Chesalon, on the north side, and went down to Beth Shemesh, and passed on to Timnah.
All right, and went down to Beth Shemesh, which is the house of the sun, passed on to Timnah. So we see there's another pagan temple worshiping the sun. And Joshua 19, they called it Shemesh. Joshua 19.
Chapter 19.
Yes. Joshua 19 and verse 41.
Oh.
Yes, Joshua 19 chapter verse 41, please. And it reads.
And the coast of their inheritance was Zorah, and Eshtalo, and Iysh, Shemesh.
All right, so this is just talking about this house of the sun, something worshiping the sun. Now in Judah, in the 19th chapter, read verse 22. 19 and verse 22.
What book?
Joshua 19, verse 22.
Okay.
You're in Joshua 19, right?
Yeah.
Okay, 22.
And the coast reaches to Tabor and Shahazimah and Beth-Shemesh, and the outgoings of their borders were at Jordan, 16 cities with their villages.
So now this is Yahweh bringing our people into the promised land and getting rid of all these pagan things that they were doing, all this sun worshiping and all this stuff. But you see they had the house of the sun and all these different places. So it was up to us to come in there, our forefathers, and not just move on into their temple and do what they were doing. No, it was up to us to come in there and start doing what Yahweh was telling us to do. All right, we're in Joshua the 19th chapter. I want you to read verse 38, please. This was in Issachar also. Joshua 19 and verse 38.
And Aram and Migdalel, Horem and Bethanah and Beth-Shemesh, 19 cities with their villages.
All right, so it's quite a few. 19 cities with their villages. Beth-Shemesh and the house of the sun, and it was also in Naphtali. Let's go to Leviticus 26th chapter. So allusions to and warnings against sun worship are frequent in the Old Testament, as in which passages for the King James Version, they might have put images, idols, but the Revised Version, the British and American, has sun images. Leviticus 26, and we want to read verse 30. Leviticus 26 and verse 30, please.
And I will destroy your high places and cut down your images and cast your carcasses upon the carcasses of your idols, and my soul shall abhor you.
All right, so this is talking about sun worship.